Missed it. Who's Ben Field and why are we chatting with him?
Yeah, Ben, well known to this county, of course. 14, 15 years at Sport Pembrokeshire, and then now going up in the world on jollies with the FAW. But there's a bit of work to go with it as well, which you can hear about us now. So Ben, good to see you, mate. Been a while. And how are you settling in? How's it going?
Yeah, evening, gents. Yes, look, thank you for having me on. Yeah, I'm loving it. It is a different world in terms of the amount of travel. I think I did say to you guys just while we were off here, I thought I knew football until I came into the FAW. Yeah. It is a beast in terms of its size and scale, but it's really exciting environment to work in. I mean, I can't complain. I work in football every day.
I mean, obviously your role there, FAW head of grassroots football, and I mean, grassroots sport has actually been quite an interesting dynamic ever since COVID, hasn't it? And we have seen, and we don't like to dwell on negatives too much, but we've got to be brutally honest. When you look maybe at things like local rugby and cricket, there's certainly been a downtake in numbers, and maybe junior sides and junior leagues aren't as strong, as prominent as they were. And there's obviously been a number of reasons for that. But football obviously still remaining such a popular sport. Has that been an issue at all? Are numbers and junior teams still strong right across the board in Wales?
I think you're right. Football has been really fortunate in the sense that we haven't really seen a drop or a decline in the numbers. So nationally, I mean, junior football is still rising daily, and particularly the girls' game. Only in the last 3 or 4 years, so that includes the years of the pandemic, you've seen the numbers double. Yeah. We've seen the numbers in senior football, the senior male game, stagnate a little bit, and there are pockets of Wales where the numbers have dropped. And I will say that's not just a Welsh phenomenon. That's happening around Europe. So there's things that we can try and do to support in that space. But in general, the levels of participation are growing. And like I said, for junior football and for women and girls, there's a significant upward trend still. So we have been fortunate in comparison to some other sports.
And what about in terms of officials, Ben? I'm quite interested because there's another debate we've had in other sports. But the even here in Pembrokeshire, obviously we talk about Sean and Stefan Jenkins, Tom from Clarbeston Road. Good young referees come through. Is there any kind of shortage, or in Wales we're still strong in that department too?
I definitely say there's a shortage. There
is
what I described as a year of active referees. I think we've got specific targets as an organisation that we're trying to get X number of referees. I think it's something like 1,500 referees that we've got around Wales. But there is a bit of a difference between those that are qualified and registered with us, and then those that are active on a regular basis. I think, without boring you with stats, I think it's about 60% of grassroots fixtures pan Wales every weekend have a referee. So we want to try and look at increasing those numbers, and some of those young guns that you've just referenced there now. I think they're brilliant role models to be bringing younger generation of officials into the game. It could be that people have just decided that's what's for them from a much younger age, or maybe just finishing the game. So and it keeps you involved.
And another thing I was like, give Tom a weird edgeways before I ask this question. No, but just one thing we're interested in, because we debated this again. This shows the 4G pitches. Now, is it 4G, 5G, whatever they call them these days? But I'm still on 3G. Yeah, we've seen the benefits of Merlin's Bridge, for example, haven't we? They don't have any games called off. They've obviously got a great training facility. Juniors can use it as well. And that has been one of the plus points pulled out, that juniors aren't having, and seniors aren't having as many games called off. Because of them, and there's obviously huge benefits, but at the same time, not every club in Wales can afford them, can they? They're massive projects, and I also do believe there's an element, as good a training facilities as they are, as much as they help, as young, you do need to be able to learn to play in the odd adverse conditions sometimes. On a wet, windy day down in, well, I was going to say Pendine, but wherever else floods in Pembrokeshire, But what's your thought on them? Do you think ideally they'd be there across the board if that was realistic? I know it's not. Or do you think there needs to be a mix, that youngsters need to be developing on grass as well as these surfaces?
I think the reality is we're never ever going to have only grass. Only 3G facilities, which is never going to have the finance to be able to do that. I take your point as well, Fraser, about actually playing on grass surfaces is probably the ideal scenario. That's what we want to be playing on. I'll give you a bit of an alarming stat that was brought to my attention the other day. We've got over 6,000 fixtures cancelled just in this season alone in grassroots football, because of the inclement weather. So there's definitely a role to play. They are really expensive, right? And it's not just the actual initial cost of building these things; it's the 10 years down the line how you replace the carpets, and those are the things that are often not considered. Plus the maintenance costs, you say. I mean, we are in a really fortunate position. The FAW have got, a sort of sister, a charitable entity called the Cymru Football Foundation. So it'll be like the English Football Foundation, and that's where we're putting our investment for facilities. So just in the last 12 months, there's been £9 million spent on grassroots facilities. A lot of that's gone into large sort of 3G pitches. Others, the elements of that going into grass pitch drainage at clubs that need it, which is just as important. It's what we're starting to find actually is that more and more of the facilities that turned from grass to 3G want to now go back to grass.
Interesting.
So there's a place for both. I think from my perspective, it's my own personal view really. I think where 3Gs, 4Gs are great, and not only for seniors to obviously stop fixtures being cancelled, but for juniors, just to create an environment that's a little bit more enjoyable. We have found that it's really helped in terms of girls' engagement in the game as well, having just a more conducive surface and a more welcoming environment really has helped. So we've still got plenty of money that we need to plough into grassroots football facilities, and the success of the men's national team getting to the World Cup a couple of years ago, really all of that money that came from that, which was about £8 million worth of finance that came back to the FAW, went straight into facility development. So the FAW are giving back. I do think they understand where it's needed.
Yeah, and we'll come back to that World Cup in a moment, because your appointment coincided very nicely with it. You've got these facts and figures and all these keywords like engagement off the top of your head. What exactly does the head of grassroots football do?
That's a good question. I don't quite know where it starts and stops. There's some official description as to where grassroots football lies. Wales has a tiered football structure. So the top 3 tiers are run by the FAW. Those are called our domestic leagues. So that's your Cymru Premier League. And then you've got the 2 tiers below that. And then everything below that, so tier 4 down to tier 10, is grassroots football. But it isn't just the affiliated game, the 11-a-side football that we'll see on the Saturday, or the junior version of the game. So grassroots football it's our disability football, walking football, veterans football, recreational football. It's huge. Like I said earlier, it's a beast of an area. I really enjoy it because there's just so many facets to grassroots football. But when you think about football and just how much is played in this country, it's the number one participation sport in the country. It's the number one in terms of its interest. It hasn't always been that way, so we've got to ride the crest of this wave while we can, because football's in a strong position right now. I will say that I'm talking about football in general. The FAW is in a strong position, but at the same time accepting that our grassroots clubs, the clubs that I'm there to serve, there's an awful lot of struggles that are faced week in and week out. Finances, the volunteers that are, having to pick up every single job at their clubs. So there's a lot of fragile clubs out there that really need our support. So to have a CEO and a board that really back us and support us and put money back into grassroots football, my team's growing as well. So I think we're in a good position to provide a lot more support to the grassroots game.
Yeah. Do you find that there's like regional issues or universal issues, like if they're comparing the north to the south and the east and the west? Are there common themes, or are there some, like looking at Pembrokeshire, for example, is there any one particular aspect that's more on that risk list than others?
I mentioned earlier there's pockets of Wales where the senior game's dropping a little bit, so not in Pembrokeshire particularly. North Wales coast. And Central Wales, they've seen a bit of a dip in terms of the male senior game. I think nationally, we tend to see a drop off from kids aged 12 to 17, but I don't think you see that sort of drop off, unfortunately, in all sports, because life kicks in, exams kick in, body image, different hobbies kick in, that sort of thing. So we're trying to take a view that, well, how can we keep more young people in the game? How do we improve that experience? Some of that phrases about facilities, like you said, that might
Yeah.
improve somebody's quality of their experience. Some of it might be, the environment they're in and how the club looks after them. So, yeah, there's more that we can do, I think, to keep kids in the game between that ages 12 and 17, and that's as good as growth then in terms of, retaining players.
Interesting what you said there earlier, actually, Ben, about the money that came from the Welsh World Cup campaigns for being able to go back into grassroots. Now, obviously, for those of us who grew up in the 90s and noughties, it is still somewhat of a golden era for our senior sides, isn't it? We were at Euro 2016, we were at Euro 2020, at the World Cup, 2 games away now from another European Championships, and the women's side as well, of course, who unfortunately haven't reached a major tournament yet. By now, I bumped into you in one of those playoff games in Cardiff. There was genuine interest. There was a buzz around. Everyone knew it was going on, which wasn't the case in the past. How important is it that the senior sides are successful and continue to have this attraction on the big stage and have sellout crowds in Cardiff? For what you said there, for the FAW and for the whole of the game in Wales, it must be vital.
Oh, it is. I think you just hit the nail on the head. It's vital, right? So, we talk as a management team all the time about that, it's cyclical, and, the grassroots feeds the top of the game. But if the top of the game is not succeeding, then the grassroots at the bottom is not getting the finance it needs to grow. So, the success of the men's national team is, and I say the men's national team because that's where the majority of the investment comes from, unfortunately. That, yes, the women's interest in the women's game and the quality of the game's improving, but unfortunately the sort of revenue that it generates isn't the same as the men's. It may never be, but so the success of the men's international team provides a huge amount of finance back into the organisation. And I don't think it's not always been invested back into the grassroots and domestic game, but like I said, at the moment we've got a board and a CEO that are really passionate about that space, which is fantastic, and if we do manage to get to the Euros, that's another big purse for qualifying that just brings more opportunity for the organisation to grow and develop and support the game.
Did you, as an organisation, do you fear a drop off? Not necessarily at the moment, 2 games away. Do you fear a drop off or the impact of what a loss of form, or going back to those aforementioned years in the 90s, something like that would obviously have a big impact on the organisation? It's
a good question. Sorry, Fraser, interrupt me. It's a good question. I don't think we fear it because sort of financially we operate on a worst case scenario, as in, right, we've got to operate on a basis of not qualifying.
Right.
So when you do qualify, it's not this bonus money, but it's money that it's in addition to. Okay. And I think in terms of sort of how professional the organisation is now and the technical department, and I mean, I sit in management meetings like, it's like being a fly on the wall. I can't believe what I'm in that environment sometimes, and listening to the discussions around our international teams. Listen, I'm not talking about team selection, but the sports science that's behind it, the way that the players are looked after. I think football in general has obviously really grown and professionalised, and Welsh football has followed suit. And a lot of that has happened. We're not going to take a dip in that space. There's a huge amount of investment that has to go there to make sure that we succeed and keep up.
Yeah. Talking of investment, now you might not have this off the top of your head, but Jason Chapman's been in touch. Great to see you, Ben. You mentioned about money available for football. What grants would be available for clubs to apply for in Pembrokeshire? Let's say you might not have that top of your head, but if you could steer some of those clubs in the right direction, it would go down very well, I'm sure.
Yeah, how much do you need, Jace? I'll checkbook out and all, but there's the Cymru Football Foundation that I mentioned earlier. There are several grants that the FAW are able to support clubs with. So whether that's equipment or whether that's about a major facility investment. So I don't know, having an aspiration to have a 3G, or like I said, maybe something that's a little bit more realistic, which might be a drainage or changing room enhancement, that type of thing. So they can be applied for on a regular basis through the Cymru Football Foundation. And sort of smaller scale, but more readily available, I'd suggest, would be the Be Active Wales Fund through Sport Wales.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So I think that's anything from about £1,500 to £50,000. There is one application that you can submit as a club per year. The nice thing about that application is it almost covers anything and everything, from putting new coaches through courses to buying new sets of cones and bibs. and actually, as the FAW, what we do is we work with Sport Wales to go through those application forms, so we can help clubs as well to kind of create successful applications there and support in the decision making. So Jason, if, and not just Jason, any club representatives that happen to be listening, if you come through to the FAW, we've got staff based locally now as well who can come out and sit in the changing rooms and clubhouses of our clubs and support with pulling applications together.
Amazing. Thank you, Ben, for your time. There's one thing I did mention earlier that we're going to quickly look back at when you first started and the adventure in the whirlwind that you got picked up on that World Cup. What was it like being the newcomer in a massive organisation whilst the biggest cup competition in football is taking place?
It was interesting. I mean, it was amazing. I joined in the August, and we went. I think it was September, October. I can't remember where we went to Qatar. So I was very lucky to get on the back of a freebie trip to Qatar. So, because Wales haven't been for so long, I think it was 60 years or something since we've been to a World Cup. The whole organisation got to go. Because we were latecomers to the competition, we stayed on a cruise ship in the harbour. So it was a short visit, but it was a wonderful visit. We were there for just a weekend. We were there for the USA game, so we saw our only goal and our only point.
Yeah.
But it was amazing. Just as a fan, it was fantastic to be there. And let's hope we can qualify for Germany and get our women through to a national competitions or international competition soon.
Away from football, mate, cricket. I know you're still going there. It's obviously serious about Haverford. You were relegated a couple of years ago. No doubt, widespread sympathy for you from around the county when that happened. But you did bounce back as champions last year. No one wants to be relegated. I know Haverford, it was the first time in a long time you've gone down. But you think sometimes clubs can go down, they can reset, take stock a bit, bring through a few youngsters, and are better for it. Is that what's happened with you? Do you think? Are you confident you'll be more prominent in Division 1 now? You're back up there next year, and this year is giving you a chance to step back as a club?
Yeah, I hate to admit it, but going down I think was the right thing for us. It was we needed that season last year. It was the right level for us because we had some really, really competitive games last year, even though we won the league, but it wasn't easy at all. So look, for me it was frustrating because I'm in the twilight years and I would like to have not had to drop down to the second division, but I also really, really enjoyed it personally. I'm really excited about going back into the first division again this year. We're gonna have a really tough season. That's the reality. Haverford are going to have a bit of a dogfight again on our hands this year, but I'm looking forward to that. And for our young boys to have got runs and wickets a bit more regularly last year, I think they'll take a little bit more confidence going into this year. So looking forward to it.
I love that. That's kind of the epitome of grassroots level sport, isn't it? You get to go up, you get to go down, you get to experience that thrill of competition without having to completely dedicate your life to it. Well, we're not finished actually talking about cricket, are we, either, Fraser? we're going to look at Division 2 in the Indoor League as well.
The Indoor League, yeah. I noticed Ben's not having entered that this year, but
it's a brilliant competition.
The quick sprints between the wicket don't get so easy when the years get longer, that's for sure. But
it needs to get harder.
Ben, thank you so much for joining us and giving insight into the organisation. And if you want to find out what the CEO thinks, follow him on Twitter. He's brilliant. He speaks his mind, which must be a blessing and a curse in the boardroom. So, Ben, thank you. We are going to change the shape and size of our ball. We're going to look at the indoor cricket after you caught up with Sean Hannon earlier. Nayland going through to the UK Championship of indoor cricket after beating Bellenvoile, and the Six Nations has kicked off. Ben, I know that you've got to fly your football flag, but did you watch the match?
I did, yeah. Brilliant second half. Really enjoyed the second half.
We're going to unpick that after a moment here on the Pure Sports Show with Eaton-Evans and Morris. Ben, thank you so much for your time. Looking forward to an update and seeing what the next 18 months brings for you in that role as well for that growing team. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Pleasure.
Thanks, Ben. Good to see you.
There you go. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back in 2 ticks. It's 8:48 here on Pure West Radio.